Thank you, John, for that gracious introduction. It's actually hard to follow an introduction like that, so let's just call this to a close. Thank you also to Greg and Dan at the Washington Policy Center. I'm delighted and honored to be here today and to have the Washington Policy Center as a partner in the fight with the American Enterprise Institute for the principles of expanding liberty, increasing individual opportunity, and defending the free enterprise system. These principles are important all the time, but rarely, at least in my adult lifetime, have they been under siege like they are today. It's more important than ever that we have communities behind organizations like ours, and I congratulate all of you for your commitment to these principles, to spend some time with us here today, and for the support you give to the Washington Policy Center. This is truly a leveraged kind of impact and a legacy type of gift that will spread your values for years to come. But thank you for that. As John mentioned, this is my hometown. I get back as much as I can. I love it here. I speak to as many audiences as I possibly can all across Seattle's political spectrum, from left to far left. And it's a little bit anathema that the president of the American Enterprise Institute would actually be from Queen Anne Hill. I realized nobody was more surprised than my own parents. And you know, to give you one little scenario that gives you an idea of the fact that the divergence in my own worldview from that whence I came. Over my 20s, as I was examining what was actually going on in the world as opposed to what I was reading in the papers, I realized that my experience of reality was not consistent with what I had always thought growing up. I mean, growing up here, I literally, at age 16, when Ronald Reagan was first elected, I knew nobody who voted for him, personally. Not one person. We had one uncle who was the mayor of a little town in Oregon, and there was a rumor he had voted for Reagan. But through my 20s, as I was questioning a lot of the ideology I had grown up with, it was becoming increasingly alarming to my parents. And it sort of came to a head one night when I was 29 years old. I was home for Christmas visiting my folks. And I was in the kitchen with my mother. We were cooking supper together. And she got kind of quiet, contemplative. And she said, "Arthur, I need to ask you a personal question." And I knew this was one of those uncomfortable moments where parents ask their adult children something about their lives. I mean, the big one was already resolved because I was already married, so she knew I liked girls. But in Seattle, that wouldn't matter. But, she said, "Arthur, have you been voting for Republicans?" I mean, I didn't have the heart to tell her, but straight out. But the point is, those of you here who share these principles of expanding liberty and increasing individual opportunity, who care about the free enterprise system as a cultural issue, there's a special kind of importance to making sure that people hear your point of view, that people see how you live, that people feel your passion in a place like this. In fact, those of us who in America feel these things have a particular responsibility today to declare that we are in a culture war. Now, I say that under advisement. I know that's controversial. But here's what I don't mean. We are not in a culture war today over God and gays and guns and abortions. Those things are important to you and they're important to me, but that's not what we're in a war over. We're also not in a war between Democrats and Republicans. We're in a culture war to decide whether or not we want to continue to be a culture of free enterprise, which is to say a culture that celebrates entrepreneurship, that believes in limited government, and is comfortable with people enjoying the rewards and facing the consequences of their personal actions. Or whether or not we are choosing the path of a culture of social democracy, like our friends in Europe, a culture where large government is embraced, where we have a managed economy, and where our primary goal is to limit income inequality. Those are two different cultures, and we have to choose. Now, later, I'm going to tell you why many people are saying we don't have to choose, and I'm going to urge you to join me in rejecting the call to not choose, because I'm going to show you the consequences of not making the choice for free enterprise. When we're done today, I'm going to leave you with 3 big points. And the 3 big points are going to be this. The free enterprise system, as much as you read about it as being a right-wing or a conservative or Republican point, is not. It is a mainstream phenomenon It's a value shared by 70% of Americans, and it is party-free. The second thing I'm going to tell you is that the free enterprise system is not about the money. You'll hear all the time, you've been argued with over the course of your lifetimes that free enterprise is an economic alternative that marginalizes the poor. It's not an economic alternative, and it doesn't marginalize the poor. Free enterprise is about human flourishing for all people, and I'm going to give you the evidence. I'm going to give you the data to show you why I believe that's the case. And the third point I'm going to make is that free enterprise is the fairest system. You're constantly hectored that free enterprise might be efficient, but it isn't fair. That is false, and I'm going to show you why. Those are the three big points I'm hoping you'll leave with today, such that you will never lose another argument on these grounds. Now, why do I say we're in a culture war? That's because I realize that that's sort of jarring to the ear, but that's not my idea. That's the President of the United States' idea. On May 13, 2009, President Obama gave his first address as president to a graduating class in a commencement address. Now, this is a rite of passage for new presidents. In their first year, they give a couple of commencement addresses that are closely watched. And the reason is because this is an indication of how the new president would advise young people. It's their mentoring instinct. What's the advice that you would give young people on May 13th, 2009? Now remember in May of 2009, we were all scared. Now we look back and say it was going to be okay, but we hope. But in May of 2009, everybody was still wondering. This was one of the darkest moments in the recession, in the worst recession in 50 years. So if you were the President of the United States, going to Arizona State University, where he was, talking to thousands of graduating seniors, what's the advice in May of 2009 you'd give these graduates? I would say, go out and save our country. Go out and create the jobs and be the entrepreneurs and make the opportunity and growth and pull our country out of this recession just like your fathers and mothers and grandparents did, just like everybody in the history of this country has done. Because we all know that the only thing that can save our country is excellence and merit and hard work and entrepreneurship. It's up to you to save our country. Show the ambition. Be the entrepreneurs. That's what I'd say. Here's what President Barack Obama said. Quote, "You're taught to chase after all the usual brass rings. You try to be on this who's who list or that top 100 list. That has been in our culture for far too long. Let me suggest that such an approach won't get you where you want to go. It displays a poverty of ambition." Unquote. That, my friends, is a declaration of culture war. That is a declaration that the ambition and the entrepreneurship and the goal of getting ahead under traditional means is not good enough. Now, I tell my kids that money doesn't buy happiness. I don't believe in materialism. But let me tell you, that's up to us, not our president. And when the President of the United States says that traditional ambition, that traditional entrepreneurship, that the rewards to traditional ambition are not good enough in the worst recession in 50 years, we have a major, major culture war on our hands. This has not been declared by us, and if we ignore it and continue to pretend that the current crisis is all about money, we lose, they win. So what are we going to do? Well, the first thing that I want to know is, do Americans agree with them? Do Americans want free enterprise anymore? I mean, I know what I want Americans to want. That's complicated. I want Americans to love free enterprise, because that's what gets me up in the morning. That's the reason I'm the president of the American Enterprise Institute, because I realize this is a goal worth, I believe, worth dedicating my life and my career to. But do Americans agree with me? It's kind of an empirical question, and you might doubt it. You know, in 1950, the government soaked up 25% of American GDP. Today, it's 39% of GDP when you look at government at all levels. You know, maybe Americans have had it with free enterprise. Maybe we don't mind getting a little French. You know, maybe that's okay. So what do the data say? The data are pretty shocking and pretty nice. In March of 2009, which literally was the darkest moment in the current recession, the Pew Research Center in Washington, D.C., which is a nonpartisan research and polling outfit, tilts slightly to the political left, conducted a large poll among randomly sampled Americans, and they asked the following question. Do you agree that the free market system is the best system for America's economy, despite severe ups and downs? That's a textual quote from the poll. 70% of Americans said yes. In March of 2009, 20% said no. 10% evidently didn't understand the question. 7 out of 10 Americans in the worst moment of the recession in 50 years said, or the worst recession in 50 years said, that the free market system is the best system for our economy despite severe ups and downs. Now, was that an anomaly? No, the Gallup polling organization 2 months later asked, do you have a favorable or unfavorable view at this moment of the free enterprise system? 86% said favorable. 84% said they were favorable of entrepreneurs. 95% had a favorable opinion of small business. 95. You can't get 95% approval rating for your mother. I mean, it's extraordinary to get this kind of, this is a cultural phenomenon. This is not about the money. This is about who we are as people. It's expressive of who Americans want to be. When you talk about freedom, when you talk about the working out of freedom in our everyday lives, in our system. Now, at the same time, pollsters have been asking Americans all the way through this recession, what do you think about government income redistribution? Because this is all about government income redistribution these days. The bailouts, the TARP, you name it. It's all about redistributing from you to people the government feels should be the winners. That's what the current administration is doing. That's the bailout philosophy. So, how do people feel in this recession about government income redistribution? And the answer is, they hate it. The Ayers-McHenry polling organization in the summer of 2009 asked a large sample of Americans to choose between 2 options for government. Option number 1, government policies should promote fairness by narrowing the gap between rich and poor, spreading the wealth, and making sure that economic outcomes are more equal. Option B, government policies should promote opportunity by fostering job growth, encouraging entrepreneurs, and allowing people to keep more of what they earn. The second option was chosen 63% to 31%. In the middle of 2009, we were hearing that the government was the only solution. We heard that from President Bush, we heard that from President Obama, and Americans spoke anonymously and said, that's not right. That's not what we want. We want free enterprise, and we hate government income redistribution. Now, this even bleeds into attitudes about business. I mean, those of you in the business community, you've really taken a beating. I mean, if you're getting ahead during this recession, it means you're doing something wrong. I mean, there's kind of a criminalization of success going on in this country today. And that's a blatant attempt to change public opinion away from you, not in your favor. So what do Americans think? I mean, there has been, well, let's be honest, there's been malfeasance and greediness and stupidity on Wall Street. So how do Americans feel about business these days? Well, the Gallup polling organization asked Americans in the summer of 2009 if they agreed that business was the source of America's strength. Do you believe business is the source of our nation's strength? 76% said yes. Now, it's extraordinary to me, but there's a wrinkle in these data. There's something that kind of alarmed me in the same poll. Let me tell you about it. In the same poll, the pollsters asked the same group of people, do you trust business? Do you believe that too much power is concentrated in the hands of business for the American good? To that question, 77% of Americans said yes. So this is anomalous. It's kind of alarming to me. Initially, it suggested to me something was wrong with the poll. I deal with poll data day in and day out. And I know that sometimes polls aren't conducted properly. And when you find an anomaly, you throw it out. It doesn't matter if you like the results, you throw it out. Because you want the truth. You don't want to convince people of something that's wrong. You want the truth. So I was rolling this around in my head. And as I frequently do when I have an anomaly, when I have something that's confusing me about data, about my research, I talk about it at home. And so I was discussing this at dinner at home with my family, which gives you an idea how much fun it is to have dinner at my house. And I said, you know, I have this weird thing that's going on in these data. I've been working on this book called Battle. And I found that 76% of Americans think that the strength of our country comes from business. But 77% of the same people don't trust business. That's not possible, right? My wife said, oh, that's simple. What do you mean? She said, it's just like marriage. And I said, this isn't going well. What do you mean? And she said, you don't trust business, but you love business. It's like husbands, right? I mean, everybody loves the institution of marriage, but nobody trusts husbands. Right? You know, and I took the point. I mean, I took great umbrage at it, but I took the point. Americans aren't stupid. Look, we know where the money comes from. We know where the freedom comes from. We know where the opportunity and growth and prosperity come from, but we're not stupid. And that's a great thing about America. We need to be skeptical. We need to keep our eyes open, and we need to demand virtue from ourselves and from our colleagues, just as we understand the coal that's being shoveled into the engine of our prosperity. This is very good news in my view. The bottom line from all the data is this. America is a 70-30 nation in favor of free enterprise. You'll hear that we're not, but we are. And it doesn't matter what data you get, and it doesn't matter what poll you look at, and what time period. It doesn't matter if you look at it now, or 10 years ago, or 20 years ago. We're a 70-30 nation. This is the cultural contrast between the United States and Europe today. If I ask the question, do you believe that the central role of government is to redistribute income from richer to poorer people? 33% of Americans say yeah. It's about the 30% coalition against free enterprise. If I go to Spain and ask that question, I just returned from Spain 3 days ago where I was on vacation with my family, so it's on my mind. And in the same polling question, if you ask Spaniards, do you believe that the central role of government is to redistribute more income from the poor, from the rich to the poor? 77% say yes. 33% here, 77% there. For now, this is how we differ. As a matter of fact, if you want a more vivid description of how we differ from the Europeans, look at the difference in protesters between Europe and the United States. Who's protesting in Greece? In Greece, the people that are throwing Molotov cocktails, burning down their own buildings, are bureaucrats and union members who are demanding lavish pensions, who are demanding early retirement, and are demanding salaries paid by their fellow citizens during the worst recession in 5 decades in their country. One of the much maligned Tea Party and town hall protesters protesting in America? And the answer is they are protesting against exactly what the Greeks are demanding. How ironic. The Americans are protesting against big government, against more regulation, against redistribution, against taking away our individual autonomy. They're protesting against bailouts, where the Greek want more bailouts. And why? The answer is cultural. The answer is because we don't want to get Greek. We want to continue to be American, and we will take to the streets. Now, our politicians, the politicians in charge, look at that and they say, that's a big threat. Why? Because the politicians in charge want us to be Greece. They want us to be, they think that's better. They're not evil. They just think it's better for our country. So what do? They look at the Tea Party protesters. Maybe some of you have been involved in this movement. And they say, that's not grassroots activity. That's, in the words of Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi, astroturf. That's corporate interests. That's shills for big business. That's what they're maligning the reputation of these very people because they cannot believe that Americans would stand up for principle. They cannot believe that Americans would hold free enterprise as the center of American culture. They believe that Americans will sell out to get more stuff and more bailouts and more benefits from government, just like the French. Is it true? For now, it's not. Will it be true in the future? That's up to us. Now, we're a 70-30 nation, and that might bring up a question for you. It certainly raised a question for me. If we're really a 70-30 nation, how come the 30%'s in charge? What happened? You know, that seems kind of weird in a democracy, but there are three explanations for that. Explanation number one is that the 30% has been in charge for a long time, and this transcends party. You know, Republicans don't typically like to hear this, and word has reached my ear that a former Republican president of the United States is much irate with me because of this very point. But we have to face it. The 30% coalition against free enterprise has contained politicians from both parties for a very long time. During the Bush administration, we saw an almost unprecedented increase in government spending, including 55,000 federal spending earmarks and no presidential vetoes because of abusive spending. We saw the largest increase in entitlement spending in dollars in American history in Medicare Part D, prescription drugs for seniors. We saw a 54% real increase in the size of the much-loathed Federal Department of Education. And the list goes on and on. In point of fact, the 70% majority for free enterprise has not been represented by either party for a long time. That's reason number one. Reason number two, of course, is the big game changer in American politics, which was the financial crisis. The financial crisis which put a gun to Americans' heads. You know, when you can have all the principles that you want, but when your life's at stake, you abrogate those principles. You might be of the view that it's immoral to give your money to a mugger, but when the mugger has his gun to your head, you get out your wallet. And that's exactly what Americans did in the last election and elections for the last little while. The last reason that the 30% is in charge of our country, even though the 70% has values contrary to what they believe, is that we haven't chosen. You know, immediately after I wrote the book that I'm talking about here today, the first criticism that I heard in the New York Times was that my viewpoint is too Manichaean. It's too black and white. It says there's good and there's bad and we have to choose, or that this is not a nation of compromise, that free enterprise and big government are not in tension, that it's okay to compromise, that of course we have to. And I say that's exactly wrong. And that is the philosophy that gets us European-style social democracy. How? Because you can be for free enterprise all day long, but at the individual policy level you compromise. You say, I'm for free enterprise, but it is nice to be good to old people with a little bit of extra government money. And it is good to have midnight basketball leagues, because I believe in helping kids in vulnerable circumstances. And I do want the company plant to stay open in my hometown, because I don't want good, honest people to be thrown out of jobs. And one binary policy decision after another breaks towards statism and redistribution, and before we know it, we're on the path towards social democracy. How do you get down the road to serfdom? And the answer is one policy at a time, being led by the hand by Republican politicians. That's how it gets done. And so the idea that we don't have to choose is exactly wrong. We need leaders who say, we believe in the principle of free enterprise because it's who we want to be. And the day that we forget that and only look at the individual policies and start to compromise is the day that the forces for social democracy, who are hostile to our worldview, that's when they win. And that's what's happened. That's why the 30% coalition is in fact in charge. Now, you might be triumphalist, as I initially was. I found these data unambiguous. 70% of Americans agree with the Washington Policy Center. I mean, you guys are the most mainstream policy organization in America today. Congratulations. Everything you guys stand for polls at 70% at least. It's fantastic. But I haven't answered one question, is, are you right? You know, the 30% actually might be right. Just because they're a minority doesn't mean they're wrong. I can give you examples throughout history where a 30% viewpoint is right. Think of the pre-civil rights American South. Less than 30% of people in the pre-civil rights South believed in equal civil rights for African Americans. The majority was wrong. Every single person in this room knows that the less than 30% viewpoint on civil rights was utterly morally vindicated by the events of history. Just because you're a minority opinion doesn't mean you're wrong. It might mean you're courageous and visionary. So, is that the case for the folks who stand against free enterprise in this country? To answer that question, we need to dig a little bit deeper. And the way we start to answer that question is to ask this. Those of your friends, which in Seattle means all of your friends and family, who stand against the forces of free enterprise, why do they think free enterprise is so bad? Ask them. And here's what they say. It's not fair. It hurts the poor. We could get a happier, more just, healthier, fairer society if only we didn't have so much income inequality, and free enterprise is driving income inequality. We need redistribution. We need to fight against many of the forces of the free market so that we can get a more equal society in terms of income. We would be happier if we weren't so unequal. That's the central argument that we hear. Now, it's actually not crazy, this argument. Let's take it seriously for a second. When you look at the data, it actually looks pretty legitimate. In 2004, people who earned more than $75,000 a year were twice as likely to say they were very happy about their lives as people who earned less than $25,000 a year. You know, maybe money does buy happiness. There are social science experiments that appear to back this up. In 1995, the Harvard School of Public Health did a wonderful study using human subjects in which they asked people to choose between two societies. Society number one, You make $50,000 a year and all your neighbors make $25,000 a year. Society number 2, you earn $100,000 a year and all your friends earn $200,000 a year. Which one do you want? 56% took number 1. 56% of the population prefers to be actually poorer but richer than the poor schlub next door. You know, it's sort of a window onto our souls a little bit. When I was a kid, my dad had a great sense of humor, and he used to give me this advice. He said, "Son, it's not enough to win. Your friends have to lose too." The social science appears to back this up. And if you take it on its face, you say income equality is no good. The problem with America is that the rich are so much richer than the poor. All this inequity. I mean, look, you walk outside, you see people who have less than you. That's not right. Go to Holland. People are pretty happy. There's not so much inequality. And furthermore, the income inequality isn't fair. It's due to luck and birth and discrimination. So what are you going to do? You're going to equalize. And how do you equalize? Well, first you have to recognize the engine of income inequality in this country. Everybody, except for the most paranoid lunatic, understands that income inequality is not because some central authority is taking money from one group and giving it to another. We know that the real engine of income inequality in this country, which is higher than in Europe, we have to recognize that fact, income inequality is driven by entrepreneurship. That's the reason we have unequal incomes in this country. We have more entrepreneurship than other countries, and entrepreneurs get to keep a good amount of what they earn. That's why we're unequal. So what are you going to do? If you hate income inequality, you've got to penalize entrepreneurship. There is simply no other way. How are you going to start? How about by raising their taxes? Actually lowering the returns, the rewards to entrepreneurship. January 1st, 2011, that's what you're going to see. A lot of you are entrepreneurs. And you know, and so do I, that your income taxes are going to go up from 35% to 39.6%. And if some of your deductions are going to be phased out, such that they're going to be effectively a 41% tax rate. And when the Medicare tax hike kicks in, it's going to be more like 45% income taxes at the margin. 35% to 45%. Almost exclusively on the entrepreneurial class in this country. That's good if you want to get less inequality. Make sure you have no corporate tax relief. America has the second highest corporate tax rate in the developed world today. Most people in the United States don't believe that. They think that we're a low-tax country. We're not. If you look at our corporate tax code, you think we're a socialist nation. The second highest in the... You want to bring more jobs home? How about making us competitive in our corporate tax rate with Sweden? Sweden has half our corporate tax rate. Yet if you really want to penalize entrepreneurs, that's how you do it. That's how you effectively raise the income tax rate, is by keeping a nice high corporate tax rate. And the list goes on and on. Penalize entrepreneurs. And at the same time, reward the unproductive part of the economy. Reward the government. And that's what we're doing as well. In the past 12 months, we've created 86,000 new permanent federal jobs. These are not the census jobs that are temporary. Permanent federal jobs, 86,000 of them, and high-paying jobs at that. The number that pay more than $100,000 a year has increased by 46% during a recession. The number paying more than $150,000 has increased by 119% at the federal level. Today, the average public sector worker makes $71,000. The average private sector worker makes $40,000. For you to think that that's legitimate, you have to agree with me right now that the average bureaucrat is 77% more valuable to the American economy than the average private sector worker. Not even the bureaucrats believe that. We have a system that's not fair by most American standards, and we're doing it to equalize incomes and to reward the unproductive sector. Now, if you believe that income inequality is bad, then you'd say, well, all of this is the right way to go. But here's the problem. The problem is not that this misreads the human heart. The problem isn't that this offends most Americans. The problem isn't that this seems unfair. The problem is that it's scientifically wrong. And the reason is because it leaves out a whole variable. It leaves out a whole area of study of what motivates people. And that variable is earned success. Earned success is the belief that you create value in your life or the lives of other people around you. And when you ask people if they feel they've earned their success, you can explain virtually all of their happiness, and money makes no difference at all anymore. Now that's not theory, that's based on data. And let me give you an example. I have data from the University of Chicago, collected in 2004 in a large group of Americans. Take two Americans who are identical in race and religion and age and education and region of origin and everything else. They both feel very successful about the success that they have earned in their jobs. One earns 8 times as much as the other. They will be equally happy in anonymous surveys. Study after study shows that earned success brings happiness to people, and it neutralizes the role of money. Now, earned success also draws money to people. When you have earned a lot more success, you tend to earn more in a free market economy, but it is the earned success and not the money that matters. As a matter of fact, people who earn success that's not denominated in money are equally happy. Social entrepreneurs are every bit as happy as commercial entrepreneurs. I wrote a textbook one time called Social Entrepreneurship, which I don't recommend that you buy. And in this book, one of the things that I found was that social entrepreneurs are blissful. People who denominate their success not in green pieces of paper called money, but they denominate their success in children who are literate, or a community that's clean and safe, or souls that are saved, or people who are eating in sub-Saharan Africa, or people who are listening to symphony orchestra music, or whatever it is they're trying to do. If they feel they've earned their success, they're happy. Parents who have earned their success with their children are happy. Artists who have created a beautiful work of art and have such earned their success are happy. Earning success is what we're all about. Now, here are 3 facts about income inequality that come from this. And I've paraphrased the whole area of research, and I'm not going to trouble you with it more. But here are 3 facts I want you to remember about income inequality. Number 1, income inequality does not cause unhappiness. That is an empirical fact. Number 2, income redistribution will not increase our level of flourishing because it does not affect earned success. And fact number 3, when we increase income redistribution to lower income inequality, we lower the incentives for people to act entrepreneurially. We lower their earned success, and thus the great paradox occurs of income redistribution, which is that it always promises happiness and it always delivers misery. That's the reason, because it's working on money. It's not working on the thing that really moves the human heart. All this has big implications for free enterprise. What is the best system for helping you earn your success? It's the system that matches your skills and your passions. It's the system that lets you keep what you earn. That is the system that will encourage you to earn the most success. That is the free enterprise system. That's the reason that the central thing that I'm talking about today is that the free enterprise system is not an economic alternative. The free enterprise system is a moral imperative. That's what the 30% Coalition Against Free Enterprise wants to take away from you and your children and our country. That's what the 30% Coalition wants to make sure no longer is America's gift to the world. That, my friends, is a moral issue and not an economic issue. Now there's another moral imperative, and that is this. It's not enough to say free enterprise is great and then to go to work and work hard and walk away. We have to ask ourselves this: what are we doing to make sure that everybody can earn their success? My job at the American Enterprise Institute is to figure out more ways for more people to earn their success. There are too many people in America today who believe that they are victims of the free enterprise system and who don't see pathways to earn success. It's really easy to spread around money. Bureaucrats are great at that. It's really hard to help people earn success. But that is the moral imperative of our time. If we want more happiness, if we want more flourishing, if we want to lead the lives of the moral imperative of free enterprise, we have to take seriously the stewardship responsibility of giving more people more pathways to more earned success. Now, let's get back to the 3 lessons, and then I'll finish, that I promised that we were going to learn here today. Number 1 is that free enterprise is mainstream. It's a 70-30 nation. Don't let anybody tell you that this is just what Republicans are peddling, that this is a conservative idea, that this is just some sort of right-wing trick to play on the heartstrings of Americans. 70% of our, at least, depending on at the very bottom, 70% of our fellow American citizens believe that free enterprise is a moral, cultural precept of our country. Number 2, free enterprise is not about the money. Money is not about the money in an already rich country. Entrepreneurship isn't about the money. It's about who we are. It's character. It's expressive. It's the ideas of the founders, and it's the source of our happiness. It's a moral issue. Free enterprise is about flourishing. And as people who believe in free enterprise, we have to stop getting caught in arguments about economic efficiency. They always talk as if they have the happiness and we have the efficiency, and they walk off with the argument. We have both. We actually have the secret to the most happiness for the most people. That's what we need to argue. Number 3 is that free enterprise is the fairest system. You hear this all the time. You know, President Obama was asked, why do you want to increase taxes on the rich? He said, because we need more fairness and balance in our tax code. In other words, bringing the top down gives us a fairer nation. Americans don't believe that. Why did your ancestors come to this country? It was not because they were looking for a fairer system of forced government income redistribution. Your ancestors came to this country because they wanted a fairer shot at getting ahead. Because they wanted a meritocracy. Because they didn't want to get held down by the old regime. In other words, Americans believe that the fairest system is one that rewards merit, hard work, and excellence, and penalizes free-riding stupidity, corruption, and incompetence. That's what most Americans think is the fairest system. Now, that's the best explanation I've ever heard of the free enterprise system, is one that rewards those things and penalizes the others. Most Americans believe that for you to work hard and your neighbor to not work, but both to end up in the same place is unfair. For you to pay your mortgage even though your house is underwater, your house mortgage is underwater, but your neighbor not to pay his and to walk away from his mortgage without recourse, that's not fair. That's unfair. For you to save and your neighbor to spend and to end up with the same pension is not fair. That's unfair. The free enterprise system, which rewards your good behavior and penalizes somebody else's bad behavior, is the fairest system. We own fairness and we need to take it back. The reason that people believe that the left is fairer than the right today is because they've said fairness more often. And it's been imprinted on the brains of the group of voters in the United States who are 18 to 29 years old. If you want, in the question and answer period, we can talk about that more. Take it back. Say it more. You stand for fairness. Now, why is all this worth fighting for? Why is it worth supporting the Washington Policy Center and the American Enterprise Institute? You know, it's a pain arguing all the time. I mean, this whole thing is under siege, and you know, my wife says that I'm not fun at parties anymore, which actually is a compliment. It means at one point I was fun at parties. It's just easier to compromise. Look, a little Obamacare here, a little financial market reform, it's going to hurt, but come on. Life goes on. It's easier just to let it go. But let's remember why this is worth fighting for. This is the system that has saved lives. This is the system that has changed the world more profoundly than any economic system in the history of the world. This has created advances in science and medicine that have affected all of our lives or will affect all of our lives. This is a system that have allowed entrepreneurs to keep more of what they earn, and therefore it has stimulated the entrepreneurship that has educated millions of children here and around the world. This is the system that people have looked to around the world such that they were motivated to throw off the shackles of their collectivist tyrannies. People have overthrown dictators and risked their lives. Why? They want to be like you. And why do they want to be like you? Because of the free, not because of the groovy clothes you're wearing or the nice weather in Seattle, but because of the free enterprise system that's at the heart of our system. That's what we're risking. Today, there are Americans around the world who are fighting and dying to share these ideas with people in other countries. The very least I can do right now, the very least all of us can do, is to fight for these ideas when they're under siege here at home. I know you are. You support the Washington Policy Center. You've just spent half an hour listening to me. I know you dedicate your resources to this. And so, for what that does for my country and to the future for my children and grandchildren, my last word to you today is, thank you.